Chapter 1. The walls shimmered like water disturbed by the wind. Selene Eirian Sunwing stood in the trial chamber, silver scales catching the magical light as she studied the crystalline tablet before her. The second day of the trial of 7, wisdom, should have presented her with riddles, diplomatic scenarios, moral quandaries, standard testing for a dragon heir. Instead, she stared at words that made no sense. What lies between worlds, neither here nor there? A bridge unseen by those who care. Step through the veil where magic runs thin and find yourself where you've never been. This isn't a riddle, her voice echoed in the empty chamber. These are instructions. The wall before her began to dissolve. Through the shimmering barrier, she glimpsed the impossible, buildings of glass and steel touching the sky, lights that weren't flame or magic, blazing in colors that had no names, creatures that looked almost like dragons in human form, but lacked any magical resonance. The human world. Selene had studied forbidden texts in the deepest archives. She knew that millennia ago, dragons and humans had walked separate paths, their worlds drifting apart until only the thinnest barriers separated them. Crossing was forbidden, and had been for thousands of years. Yet here was a door. I should alert someone, she thought, even as something pulled at her, a certainty that felt like prophecy. If I don't investigate now, something terrible will happen. 5 minutes. Just a quick look. She stepped through. The world lurched. Colors inverted. Gravity pulls in 6 directions simultaneously. For one horrible moment, her body tried to exist in 2 dimensions at once. Then she stumbled onto concrete. Behind her, the portal collapsed like a door slamming shut. No! Selene lunged for empty air. Open! Please! Nothing. Just gray wall and strange-smelling air and distant sounds of machinery she'd never heard before. She was trapped in the human world, and no one knew where she'd gone. 7 minutes later, in the trial arena, chaos erupted. "Where is Princess Selene?" The head judge's voice cracked with alarm. Her chamber stood empty. No dragon scale, no scent, nothing, except the cryptic riddle still glowing on the tablet. "Find her!" Solaris's roar shook the palace foundations. 6 golden dragons exploded into flight, searching every corner, every shadow, every hidden space. Nothing. In the observation stands, Caspian Thornskill stood frozen for 3 seconds. Then he ran. "The libraries!" he shouted to his father. "If there's any record of dimensional breaches, any mention of portals, I'll find it." He had spent his entire life in those libraries. He knew every restricted section, every forbidden text, every archive the librarians themselves had forgotten. The Thornskill family had served as court scholars for generations, his father before him and his grandfather before that. They had helped Valerius build the very foundations of the kingdom's vast library system. If the answer existed, he would find it. He had to. In the throne room, Empress Luna clutched her chest as the crown of creation blazed with alarm. "She's not in this world. I can't feel her anywhere in the 9 kingdoms. She's just gone." "What do you mean by not in this world?" Ryu demanded. "I mean exactly that." Luna's hand trembled on the crown. "The crown connects me to all my people, especially my children. I can feel them like threads of light, Solaris in the North Wing, Valor training in the East. But Selene's thread just vanished. Not dead, not unconscious, gone. Like she stepped out of reality itself." Valerius rose, ancient power rolling through the palace like thunder. Seal the borders, alert every kingdom, contact Luna's brothers immediately. My granddaughter is missing, and I want answers. Within the hour, the 9 kingdoms mobilized. Ember arrived in a column of flame that scorched the courtyard stones. Where is she? I'll tear apart whoever took her. We don't know, Luna admitted, her voice hollow. She vanished during the trial. Impossible, Aiden materialized in ocean mist. Dragons don't just vanish, unless it's dimensional magic. Everyone turned. Caspian stood in the doorway, arms full of ancient scrolls, eyes red-rimmed but blazing with intensity. His deep blue eyes, the same shade as his scales, burned with desperate determination. Your Majesties, he spread scrolls across the war table with shaking hands. The barriers between worlds, they're not impenetrable. There are weak points where someone with the right knowledge could create a doorway. To the human world, someone created a portal. Someone lured Selene deliberately. This was planned. Luna's face went pale. Can we get her back? Not directly, but if someone created a breach, there should be residual magical signatures. We can track those, find where the portal originated, maybe find a way to reopen it. Show me everything, Valerius commanded. What followed were weeks of desperate research, Caspian working alongside the Empire's greatest magi, barely sleeping, refusing to stop. He'd promised Selene he'd always be there for her. He wouldn't fail her now.
Chapter 2. The Dark Mages found Selene within 3 hours. She'd made it 6 blocks through the human city, 6 blocks of sensory overload and growing panic when someone grabbed her from behind. Cold iron clamped around her wrists, the kind that burned dragon magic right out of her veins. Got her, a male voice said. Careful, she's valuable. The ritual requires her to be alive and relatively intact. A woman's voice, clinical and cold. What ritual? Selene tried to transform, to fight, but iron disrupted everything. Her magic fizzled. Who are you? Something pricked her neck. Liquid fire poured through her veins. Darkness swallowed her whole. When she woke, stone walls surrounded her. Iron bars, flickering torchlight. The air smelled of mildew and rot. Her wrists were still bound. She tried to summon even a spark of magic. Nothing. Just exhaustion and emptiness. Finally awake. A man stood outside the cell, middle-aged, human, wearing robes that suggested magical training. My name is Marcus Blackthorn, and you, Princess Selene, are going to help us resurrect a god. Selene laughed despite her terror. A god? Are you insane? Gods don't die. Not a true god. A dark god. Banished millennia ago to the space between dimensions, but with the right sacrifice, a dragon of prophecy, silver scales, royal blood, we can bring him back. And when we do, he'll grant us power beyond anything your 9 kingdoms possess. Oh. This wasn't random. They'd specifically targeted her, created that portal during the trial because they knew she'd investigate. You're wasting your time, Selene said, forcing her voice steady. My family will find me. They'll tear apart both dimensions. They'll try, Marcus smiled. But the ritual requires 13 days. We're on day 3. In 10 more days, at the lunar apex, we'll drain your magic, spill your blood, and open the doorway. Your family won't even know which world to search. He turned away. Rest while you can, princess. You'll need your strength. They left her in the darkness. For the first time in her life, Selene was truly, completely alone. The torture started on day 5. Not physical at first, they needed her alive for the ritual. Instead, they tortured her mind. Tell us about the crown of creation. Marcus stood over her as she sat chained to a stone chair. How does it choose an heir? I don't know. Truth. The crown was sentient. Its criteria known only to itself and the god of creation. Liar. Helena placed her hand on Selene's forehead. Magic seared through her skull. Not dragon magic, something older, darker, wrong. It felt like someone rifling through her memories with claws made of glass. Selene screamed. "The crown," Helena hissed. "Tell us how to control it." "I don't know." Each word cost her everything. The magic dug deeper, shredding through memories like pages torn from a book. She saw her childhood flash past, saw Caspian's face at age 6, those deep blue eyes studying her with quiet concern. At 11, when he defended her to the nobles. At 16, when he'd looked at her during the summer festival like she was the only person in the room. She saw her brothers, saw her mother's coronation. Caspian, she thought desperately, clinging to the memory of his steady presence. I wish you were here. Useless. Helena withdrew her magic. Her head felt split open. The crown. Tell us how to control it. She truly doesn't know. The crown's secrets are kept even from heirs. Then she's only useful for the ritual. The younger man, Thomas said, looking uncomfortable. Precisely, Marcus agreed. 8 more days. On day 7, they started the physical torture. We need to weaken her magical reserves, Marcus explained as if Selene wasn't chained to a stone altar. The ritual requires her magic at breaking point, powerful enough to fuel the gateway, but too depleted to resist. 6 hours of methodical, calculated pain. They used magic to stimulate every pain receptor simultaneously. It felt like burning alive from the inside out. Selene held out for 2 hours before screaming, 4 hours before begging, 5 before passing out. When she woke back in her cell, body intact but soul shattered, Marcus's voice echoed. 6 more days. We'll repeat this daily. Try to endure, princess. Your suffering serves a greater purpose. Selene curled up on the cold stone and cried. She thought of her family searching for her, of her mother feeling her absence through the crown, of her brothers tearing apart the 9 kingdoms, looking for any clue. And she thought of Caspian, who would be in the libraries right now, tearing through ancient texts, learning dead languages, finding answers, because that's what he did. His friendship had always been her anchor. The thought of his steady, reliable presence gave her strength. Hold on, she told herself. Just hold on. Caspian will find a way. Someone will come. But hope grew dimmer with each passing day. By day 10, Selene had stopped counting torture sessions. Twice daily now. 6 hours each. Clinical. Marcus took notes on how her magic responded. She was an experiment, a resource, a battery slowly draining. Her dragon form wouldn't come anymore. Her magic was a guttering candle where it had once been a bonfire. She could barely stand. 3 more days, Helena said with satisfaction. Her reserves are nearly depleted. Perfect timing. Then Selene heard something. Distant. Muffled by stone and barriers. Shouting, steel clashing, an explosion that shook the dust from the ceiling. Her captors froze. What was that? Thomas demanded. Impossible, breathed Marcus. No one knows this location. Another explosion. Closer. The torches flickered and died. In sudden darkness, a voice, young, male, speaking a language Selene didn't know but somehow understood. Find her. Search every room. Hope, painful and desperate, flared in Selene's chest. Someone had found her. The cell door exploded inward. Through smoke and debris, Selene saw him. A young man in military attire, sword drawn, eyes blazing with determination. Human, unmistakably so, but he carried himself like a warrior, like royalty. Behind him, soldiers in matching uniforms. "Clear the room," he commanded. The young man approached Selene's cell and stopped short, eyes widening as he took in her condition, chained to the wall, covered in bruises that hadn't healed, so weak she could barely lift her head. "Gods above," he whispered.
What did they do to you? Who? Selene's voice came out as a croak. Who are you? Crown Prince Cassian Thornheart of Eldoria. He worked on the cell lock with practiced efficiency. And you're the missing dragon princess everyone's been searching for. The lock clicked. He entered cautiously as if afraid she'd bolt. The chains! Iron! I can't... Magic doesn't... I know. He pulled out keys. Actual iron keys taken from her captors. These humans were trafficking in illegal magic. We've been tracking them for months. Had no idea they'd kidnapped someone from another dimension until our mages detected the residual portal magic. The chains fell away. Her wrists were raw, burned. Can you stand? She tried. Failed. Her legs wouldn't support her. Without hesitation, Cassian scooped her up. She was too weak to protest. I've got you, he said softly. You're safe now. I promise. As he carried her out of that dungeon, past the bodies of her captors, up into fresh air and sunlight, Selene felt relief wash over her. But underneath that relief was a single, desperate thought. I need to get home. I need to see Caspian. I need to see my family. Chapter 3. Eldoria Palace reminded Selene of home in unexpected ways. Gardens bloomed with flowers that responded to moonlight. Fountains hummed with faint magical resonance. The architecture blended human engineering with organic elegance. They'd taken her to the healing wing immediately. Severely malnourished, the palace physician, an older woman with kind eyes, magically depleted. The iron burns are dangerous for magical beings. She'll need weeks of rest, proper nutrition, and absolutely no magic use until her reserves rebuild. Weeks? Selene struggled to sit up. I can't stay weeks. My family, they're searching for me. I need to... You need to rest, the physician said firmly. Your Highness, another day or two in that dungeon, and your magical core would have collapsed entirely. You would have died. Right now, you're barely holding together. We're trying to locate a way to contact your family, Cassian said near the door. He'd stayed throughout her examination. Our mages are researching dimensional communication, but the physician is right. You need to heal first. He had a point. I hated that he had a point. Fine. But the moment you find a way to contact them, you tell me immediately. Agreed, Cassian said with a small smile. Over the next week, Selene learned several things about Crown Prince Cassian Thornheart. First, he was stubborn. When she tried getting out of bed too early, he physically blocked the door until she agreed to rest another day. Second, he was genuinely kind. He visited daily, bringing books, asking about dragon culture, treating her like a person rather than a political curiosity. Third, he was cursed. Selene noticed on day 3 of recovery. They were in the palace library. He'd carried her there because she was going stir-crazy, and the physician had finally allowed limited movement. You're in pain. Selene watched him shelve a book with slightly stiff movements. Her magical sight, finally returning, showed dark tendrils wrapped around his essence. He froze. How did you... I'm a dragon of prophecy trained by the 9 Kingdoms' greatest scholars. You think I can't spot curse magic? He sighed and sat across from her. It's called the Thornheart Curse. Ancient magic placed on my family generations ago. It drains life force progressively. My father died from it at 40. My grandfather at 32. If the pattern holds, I have maybe 15 years left. That's horrible. It's reality, he shrugged, but pain flickered beneath acceptance. Our mages have tried everything. The curse is too old, too deeply woven. So I do what I can with the time I have. Hunt dark mages, protect my kingdom, try to be a good prince. Speaking of which, we've made progress on dimensional communication. Selene's heart leapt. Really? Really. But there's a problem. He explained about the damaged barriers, the brief communication window that would only last minutes, and months needed for restabilization afterwards. The mages examined you during treatment. The torture, the magical depletion. Full recovery will take months, and dimensional travel in your current state? He hesitated. They're not sure you'd survive. The magical strain requires significant power reserves. Right now, you have almost none. So I can contact my family, but can't go home? Not for months? At least 2 months. I'm sorry. 2 months? They'll be so worried, and I can't return for 2 months. Then we tell them you're safe, Cassian said firmly. We tell them you're recovering, that we're taking care of you, that we'll send you home the moment it's safe. It's not ideal, but it's better than them thinking you're dead. He was right. But gods, it hurt. 3 days later, the communication ritual took place in Eldoria's main casting chamber, a circular room carved from white marble, inscribed with glowing runes. 5 mages stood at pentagram points, channeling power into a mirror-like surface at the center. The window will last no more than 5 minutes, Master Erickson warned. Speak quickly, Princess. Dimensional communication is disorienting. Your family will appear as if through water. Selene nodded, too nervous to speak. The mirror rippled. Colors swirled. Gold, silver, blue. Then suddenly, she saw them. Her mother, face was gaunt with worry. Her father was beside her, hand on her shoulder. Behind them, her 6 brothers, all looking exhausted and desperate. "Selene!" Luna's voice came through distorted but clear. "Oh God, Selene, you're alive!" "I'm alive," Selene spoke quickly, aware of the ticking clock. "Mother, father, I'm so sorry. I was kidnapped by dark mages in the human world. They tortured me, tried to use me for a ritual. But I was rescued by Crown Prince Cassian of Eldoria, and I'm safe now. I'm recovering." "We're coming to get you," Ryu said immediately. "We'll tear open the dimensions." "No!" Selene interrupted. "Father, please listen. The dimensions are unstable. Forcing a portal could collapse both worlds, and I'm not strong enough to travel yet. The torture depleted my magic. I need at least 2 months to recover before dimensional travel would be safe." 2 months? Salaz looked stricken. "Selene, we can't just leave you." "You have to," she said firmly, fighting tears. "I'm safe here. Prince Cassian and his people are taking care of me. I promise I'll come home the moment I'm strong enough. But forcing anything now would kill me. Please, trust me." "The window is destabilizing," Master Erickson called. 30 seconds. "I love you," Selene said quickly. "All of you. Tell grandfather and grandmother I'm all right. Tell my uncles not to start a war trying to rescue me. And tell—" Her voice broke. "Tell Caspian Drake Thornscale I'm coming home. Tell him to wait for me. Please." "We'll tell him," Luna promised, tears streaming down her face. "We love you, Moonlight. Come home safe." 10 seconds! "I will," Selene whispered. "I promise." The mirror went dark. The connection severed. Selene stood staring at an empty glass, feeling the weight of 2 months of separation settling over her. Cassian appeared at her side. "You did well. They know you're alive. That's something." "It's not enough." "No," he agreed quietly. "But it's what we have." Chapter 4. "You're doing it wrong." Selene looked up from her meditation position. They were in a private garden, the moon-viewing balcony the head gardener had created for her, attempting to rebuild her magical reserves through focused breathing. "I'm doing exactly what the mages instructed," she said defensively. "You're doing what they instructed for humans," Castian said across from her. "But you're not human. You're a dragon. Your magic is tied to your elemental nature. What element are you aligned with?" "No one's ever asked me that." "In Eldoria, elemental alignment is the first thing mages assess. In the 9 kingdoms, we focus on magical theory and practical application. Elemental alignment is considered old-fashioned. Except you're not most dragons, Cassian leaned forward. You're silver, prophesied, different from your golden brothers. Haven't you wondered why? She had, many times. Close your eyes, Cassian instructed. Stop trying to pull magic from the air like human mages. Feel for what calls to you naturally. Fire, water, earth, air, light, darkness. Selene closed her eyes skeptically but followed the instructions. At first, nothing. Just emptiness. Then slowly, she felt it. A pull. Gentle but insistent. Coming from above. From the night sky. From moonlight streaming down. Moon, she breathed. Lunar magic. That's why my skills are silver. Lunar magic is rare. Powerful. Cyclical. It explains why the iron hurt you so severely. It disrupts lunar magic more than other types. But it also means you'll recover faster under moonlight. How do you know all this? He smiled slightly. My curse is tied to shadow magic, a dark reflection of lunar magic. I've spent my life researching magical theory, trying to find a counter-curse. You pick things up. They spent the next hour with him teaching her proper lunar meditation. For the first time since her kidnapping, Selene felt her magic begin to truly regenerate. Not quickly, but steadily. You're a good teacher, she said as the session ended. You're a good student. Quick to learn, willing to try new approaches. Selene smiled, but her thoughts drifted to another teacher. Caspian Drake Thornscale, who'd spent countless hours in the palace libraries teaching her magical theory, debating philosophy, and challenging her to think deeper. She missed him with an ache that felt physical. The weeks blurred together. Cassian introduced her to Eldoria's archives. They had texts on dimensional magic that even the 9 kingdoms lacked. Selene spent hours reading, documenting everything she found, knowing this knowledge could benefit her people. Your scholars think magic is inherent, Cassian observed one afternoon. Ours think it's environmental, that all beings can access magic if they know how. What if you're both right? Selene suggested, her mind automatically going to discussion she'd had with Caspian Drake Thornscale years ago. What if magic is inherent, but accessing it requires environmental understanding? His eyes lit up. That would explain why some humans can use magic and others can't. And why dragons are naturally magical, Selene continued. We evolved in a high magic dimension. Our bodies adapted to constant magical immersion. We should document this. Cassian grabbed the paper immediately. This could revolutionize magical education in both dimensions. They spent the rest of the day drafting theoretical papers. It was intellectually stimulating, and Selene was grateful for the distraction. But each discovery, each breakthrough, made her think, I wish Caspian were here. He'd love this. We could debate these theories for hours. The longing for home grew stronger every day. 6 weeks into her recovery, Selene asked about the architectural wonders she'd glimpsed during her brief time conscious in the human city. The buildings that touch the sky, she said, made of glass and steel. How is that possible without magic? Cassian's face lit up. You noticed those? They're called skyscrapers. The engineering is fascinating. He spent hours explaining structural engineering, load-bearing principles, and material science. Selene listened intently, asking questions, her scholarly mind absorbing everything. Could I have books on this? Diagrams? I want to understand it completely. Of course, Cassian looked pleased. I'll gather whatever you need. Over the following weeks, he brought her texts on human agriculture, crop rotation techniques, botanical research, and engineering methods. Selene devoured it all, taking meticulous notes, documenting everything in her personal diary. Why are you studying all this? Cassian asked one day, watching her fill yet another journal. Because I can't come home empty-handed, Selene said simply. 2 months trapped in another dimension could be seen as a disaster. But if I return with knowledge that can improve our agriculture, our construction, our understanding of dimensional magic, then it becomes something valuable, the best souvenir of a catastrophe. Cassian smiled. You're remarkable. Even here, even recovering from torture, you're thinking about how to serve your people. It's what I was raised to do. But in her heart, she thought, it's what Caspian would do. Find the value in every situation. Learn from everything. She missed him so much it hurt. By the 8th week, Selene's magic had recovered enough for basic transformations. Cassian asked to see her dragon form. In a private forest clearing, she transformed carefully. Silver scales rippled into place, wings unfurling, not quite full strength, but better, so much better. You're beautiful, Cassian said quietly. She shifted back to human form. Thank you. I mean it. He stepped closer. Selene, I've seen many magical beings, but I've never seen anyone like you. There was something in his tone that made Selene's stomach tighten with apprehension. Cassian, let me finish, she said. These past 2 months, getting to know you, seeing your strength, your intelligence, your kindness, I've fallen in love with you. Selene's heart sank. Cassian, I know it's impossible. I know you're leaving, but I needed you to know that because living honestly matters more than protecting myself from rejection. Selene took a careful breath. I'm honored, she said gently. Truly. You're an extraordinary person, Cassian. But my heart belongs to someone else. It has for most of my life. His name is Caspian Drake Thornscale. We've been friends since we were 6 years old. And even here, even grateful for everything you've done, that hasn't changed. Pain flickered across Cassian's face. I understand. I wish I could return your feelings, Selene said honestly. You deserve someone who can. But I won't lie to you. My heart has always been Caspian's, even when I didn't know it myself. You're being kind, Cassian said quietly. By being honest. Thank you for that. Can we still be friends? Selene asked carefully. Of course, Cassian managed to smile. If I can't have your heart, I'd rather have your friendship than nothing at all. They stood in awkward silence. I still want to heal your curse, Selene said carefully. If you'll let me. You saved my life. The least I can do is extend yours. I'd be grateful. They proceeded with preparations for the curse-breaking ritual. But the easy camaraderie had shifted into something more careful, more bittersweet. Selene felt guilty despite having done nothing wrong. She hadn't asked for his love, hadn't encouraged it, but she still hated that she'd hurt him. 3 weeks before the dimensional convergence, they performed the curse-breaking ritual. It required Selene to channel her newly recovered lunar magic directly into Cassian's life force, burning away the shadow curse that had been killing him since birth. The process took 6 hours. When it was done, Cassian collapsed, gasping, his eyes wide with wonder. I can feel it, he breathed. The weight, it's gone. The constant drain, it's just gone. Your life force is regenerating, Selene confirmed, checking his magical signature. The curse is completely broken. You'll live a full natural lifespan now. You gave me decades, Cassian said, tears streaming down his face. Selene, you've given me a lifetime I never thought I'd have. You deserved a lifetime, Selene replied, smiling despite her own exhaustion. I'm glad I could help. Cassian pulled her into a careful embrace. Thank you. For this, for everything. I know I can't have what I want, but this gift, it means everything. You're welcome, Selene said softly. When they pulled apart, she saw acceptance in his eyes. Not happiness, but peace. He was making his peace with loving someone who would never love him back. And Selene made her own peace with the guilt. She'd been honest, she'd been kind, she'd given her what she could, friendship and her life. It would have to be enough. Chapter 5. The dimensional convergence began at dawn. Selene stood in the portal chamber, fully restored and ready to return home. Cassian stood with the mages, his face carefully neutral. The convergence window opens in 60 seconds, Master Erickson announced. Selene turned to face Cassian. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything. For saving me, for healing me, for being my friend." "Thank you for saving my life. Selene, when you get home, tell him. Tell your Caspian how you feel. Don't waste time being afraid." "I will," Selene promised. 10 seconds! Selene moved toward the portal as it began to shimmer into existence. At the threshold, she looked back one last time. "Goodbye, Cassian Thornheart. Goodbye, Selene Eirian Sunwing. Be happy." She stepped through. The portal exploded with light. The barriers slammed shut with finality. On the dragon side, Selene tumbled through the gateway and found herself immediately surrounded. "Selene!" Her mother was there first, catching her before she hit the ground. Then her father wrapped both of them in his massive arms. Then her brothers, all 6 of them, surrounded their parents in a protective circle, their golden scales blazing with relief and joy. "My moonlight," Luna sobbed, pulling Selene into her lap despite Selene being a grown woman. "My precious girl, you're home. You're really home." Ryu took Selene's hands carefully, checking every finger, every inch of skin for injuries. His hands trembled as he examined her, his eyes red-rimmed. "Are you hurt? Did they harm you? Selene, tell me you're all right." "I'm fine, Father," Selene said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm home. I'm really home." Solaris pressed his forehead to hers, his breath shuddering. "Little moon, we thought we'd lost you. Never. I fought every day to come back to you, all of you." Valor kissed her forehead, his hands gentle on her silver scales. Aurelius checked each scale carefully to make sure none had dimmed. Felix held her hand tight, as if afraid she'd disappear again. Drakon and Cyrus completed the circle, all of them touching her, needing physical proof she was real. They were all crying, her stoic father, her usually composed brothers. The sight of their tears made Selene's own fall faster. "You two are going to make a river with your tears," Selene joked weakly, looking at her parents' tear-stained faces. That made them cry harder. Luna laughed through her sobs, clutching Selene tighter. "Let us cry, Moonlight. We've earned these tears." Then Valerius and Lilybell arrived, her grandmother immediately pulling Selene from Luna's arms into a crushing embrace. "My silver star, my brave, brilliant granddaughter." "Grandmother," Selene whispered, burying her face in Lilybell's shoulder. "I missed you so much." "We're here now," Valerius said, wrapping both Selene and Lilybell in his arms. "You're home. You're safe. We'll never let anything happen to you again." Her uncles appeared next. Ember, his usual fiery temperament replaced with gentle relief as he checked her over. Aiden, materializing in ocean mist, his hands careful on her shoulders. All of them touching her, reassuring themselves she was real. For hours, her family surrounded her. They moved to a private family chamber where they could hold her without the formality of the throne room. Luna kept Selene close, her mother's arms never fully releasing her. Ryu sat beside them, one hand always touching Selene's shoulder or hand. Her brothers flanked them in a protective semicircle, as if creating a barrier between Selene and the rest of the world. "We'll never let you out of our sight again," Solaris promised, his voice fierce. "Never," his brothers echoed. "We'll protect you with our lives, little moon. You'll never be alone again." That statement made Selene cry anew. She pulled each brother into individual embraces, whispering how much she'd missed them, how their faces had kept her strong during the darkest moments. "I thought about you every day," she told them. During the torture, when I was alone and afraid, I thought about home, about all of you. It's what kept me alive." "We never stopped looking," Valor said fiercely. "Every day, every moment. We tore apart archives, consulted every mage, followed every lead." "We weren't going to stop until we found you," Aurelius added. "Thank the gods you're alive. I don't know what we would have done if—" His voice broke. "Don't think about it," Selene said, taking his hand. "I'm here. I'm home. That's what matters." They held her late into the night, her family unwilling to let her go, and Selene equally unwilling to be released. She had been alone for so long. The feel of her mother's arms, her father's steady presence, her brother's protective circle, it was everything she dreamed of during those terrible weeks. Eventually, exhausted and emotionally drained, they allowed her to rest. But Luna insisted Selene sleep in her parents' chambers that night, with Ryu and Luna on either side. "Just for tonight," Luna said. "Tomorrow you can have your own space. But tonight, I need to know you're here. I need to feel you breathing." "I understand," Selene said, and she did. She needed them just as much. That night, surrounded by her parents' warmth, Selene finally allowed herself to fully relax. She was home, she was safe, she was loved. And tomorrow, she would see Caspian. The celebration lasted 3 days. A grand banquet was held in honor of Selene's return, with nobility from all 9 kingdoms attending. During the festivities, Selene presented the treasures she'd brought back from the human world. "I kept a diary," she explained, spreading books and journals across the table. "Of everything I saw, everything I learned, their architecture fascinated me. Buildings that touch the sky using steel and glass instead of magic. Prince Cassian explained the engineering principles, and I documented everything." The gathered scholars leaned forward, amazed. "And this," Selena continued, pulling out more volumes, "is their knowledge of agriculture, crop rotation techniques we've never considered, botanical research that could improve our crop yields by 30%, engineering methods that could revolutionize our construction." "This is extraordinary," Valeria said, examining a detailed architectural diagram. "Selene, you've brought back more than yourself. You've brought back knowledge that could benefit the entire empire." "The best souvenir of a disaster," Luna said softly, proudly. "My daughter turned catastrophe into opportunity." Selene's brothers crowded around the books, their eyes alight with interest. "These crop rotation techniques," Solaris said, scanning through an agricultural text, "if we implemented these across all 9 kingdoms, food security would increase dramatically. Fewer famines, better nutrition for the smaller species." Valor finished, already thinking strategically. "And these engineering principles," Aurelius added, studying the architectural diagrams, "we could build structures that withstand earthquakes, extreme weather." "Safe housing for everyone," Felix said, his usual optimism taking on a practical dimension. "The mouse tribe, the cat tribe, they lose so many homes to floods and storms each year." "We could change that," Draken said firmly. "Selene, these books, they're more valuable than gold." "We should form research committees," Cyrus suggested, his analytical mind already organizing. "Solaris, you handle agriculture since you understand land management. Valor, you oversee engineering and construction. Aurelius, medicine and botany. These texts mention disease prevention techniques we haven't considered." "And all handle education reform," Felix said. "If we're going to implement these changes, we need to teach them properly." "Economic implementation," Draken added. "Someone needs to ensure these improvements reach every kingdom, every species, fairly." "And I'll coordinate everything," Cyrus finished. "Make sure all the research threads connect, that we're not duplicating efforts." Selene watched her brothers plan with growing pride. They were taking her hard-won knowledge and transforming it into something that would benefit millions. "Not just our kingdom," Luna said, following Selene's thoughts. "All 9 kingdoms will prosper from this. The mouse tribe, the cat tribe, the dog tribe, the bird tribe, all the smaller species that have struggled. Selene, you've brought back a revolution." Over the following weeks, Selene's brothers threw themselves into research with characteristic intensity. They formed committees, consulted with scholars, and began pilot programs in different regions. The results were remarkable. Agricultural yields increased, new construction methods provided safer housing, medical techniques reduced infant mortality among the smaller species. Education reforms meant that even the poorest families could access basic learning. Everywhere Selene went, people stopped her to express gratitude. The Silver Princess turned her bad luck into good luck for all of us, became a common saying. She suffered and we prospered. That's the mark of true royalty. Her brothers' efforts were equally praised.
All 6 princes are exceptionally talented, nobles remarked. Each took a different aspect of the princess's knowledge and made it work for our kingdoms. This is what leadership looks like. Selene felt deep satisfaction. Yes, the kidnapping had been horrible. The torture had left scars she'd carry forever. But from that darkness had come something genuinely beneficial. She'd turned catastrophe into a catalyst for change. And her family, her brilliant, dedicated brothers, had helped her make it real. Chapter 6. 3 weeks after her return, once Selene had recovered enough to walk without assistance and the initial celebrations had settled, she asked to see Caspian Drake Thornscale. Her family had been giving her space, time to process the trauma, adjust to being home, and heal both physically and emotionally. But Selene needed to see him, needed to confirm that what she'd felt across dimensions was real. They arranged to meet in the Queen's Haven, the enchanted garden her grandmother had created, blessed to give peace to all living beings within its borders, the place where so many of their childhood memories had been made. Selene arrived first, her heart pounding. She wore simple robes, her silver scales still slightly dull from the ordeal but recovering. Her hands trembled as she waited. Then he appeared. Caspian Drake Thornscale stood at the garden entrance and Selene's breath caught. He looked terrible, thinner than she remembered, with dark circles under his eyes and hands that shook slightly. His blue scales had lost some of their luster, but his eyes, those deep blue eyes that matched his scales perfectly, held the same steadfast warmth she'd always known. He looked like someone who'd spent 2 months barely sleeping, barely eating, consumed by desperate research. Selene? His voice cracked on her name. Caspian. They stared at each other for a heartbeat. Then they moved simultaneously, meeting in the middle of the garden, crushing each other in an embrace that felt like coming home. "You're real," Caspian said into her hair, his whole body trembling. "You're really here. When you vanished, I thought I'd lost you forever." "I'm here," Selene said, holding him tighter. "I'm home. I'm sorry I scared you. I'm so sorry." He pulled back just enough to look at her, his hands framing her face, those deep blue eyes scanning every feature as if memorizing her all over again. "When you disappeared," he said, his voice raw, "it felt like someone had torn out my heart. I couldn't breathe properly, couldn't think beyond find her. I spent every waking moment in those libraries, learning dead languages, consulting every mage, following every impossible lead, because the alternative, living in a world without you, was unthinkable." Tears spilled down Selene's cheeks. "I thought about you every day. During the torture, when I was alone and terrified, your face kept me going. I'd remember how we used to study together in the palace libraries, how you'd explain complex theories until I understood, how you'd look at me like I was more than just a princess, like I was Selene, your friend." "You are," Caspian said fiercely. "You've always been just Selene to me. My best friend, the person who sees me for who I am, not just my family name or my position as a court scholar." "I missed you so much," Selene said whispered. "I missed your warmth, your smile, the way you smell like old books in winter mornings. I missed how reliable you are, how your friendship gives me strength." Caspian's face crumpled. He pulled her back against him, and they stood there like that, both crying, both holding on like the other might disappear.
Finally, he pulled apart enough to sit on a nearby bench, hands still clasped, neither willing to break contact. "Tell me," Caspian said gently. "Tell me what happened, if you can." So Selene did. She told him about the kidnapping, the torture, the Dark Mage's ritual. She told him about Crown Prince Cassian Tornhart's rescue, about the weeks of recovery, about the curse breaking. And because they'd always been honest with each other, she told him about Cassian's confession. "He fell in love with you," Caspian said quietly, not a question. "Yes," Selene admitted, "and I told him the truth, that my heart belonged to someone else, that it had since we were children." Caspian's grip on her hands tightened. "Who?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Selene looked at him. This person who'd been her anchor for as long as she could remember, who'd spent 2 months destroying himself trying to save her, who'd waited faithfully for her return, whose deep blue eyes had always seen her, truly seen her since they were 6 years old. "You," she said simply. "It's always been you, Caspian." For a moment, he didn't react. Then his eyes widened, disbelief and hope warring on his face.
"Selene, I love you," she said, the words falling out in a rush. "I've loved you since we were 11, and you spent 3 hours explaining magical theory because you knew I was struggling. Since you were 13 and defended me to the nobles who said I was too soft to rule. Since you were 16 and looked at me during the summer festival like I was the only person in the room. I've loved you for so long, I can't remember when it started. I was just too afraid to say it before." "Why?" asked Caspian, his voice rough with emotion. "Why afraid?" "Because you're brilliant and kind, and you deserve someone whose duty doesn't always come first," Selene said. "Because I'm the prophesied heir, and that means the crown will always be part of our lives. Because I was terrified you'd reject me, or worse, accept me out of duty. Because being vulnerable is terrifying, and you've always been so important to me that the thought of ruining our friendship was unbearable." "You could never ruin our friendship," Caspian said. "Selene, I've been in love with you since we were 10 years old, and you stood up to that bully twice your size because he was tormenting a mouse tribe child. You were fierce and brave, and you didn't care that it might hurt your reputation. That's when I knew." "Why didn't you tell me?" "For the same reasons you didn't tell me," Caspian said with a small smile. "Fear, uncertainty, not wanting to burden you when you already carry so much weight. But Selene, these past 2 months taught me something. Life is unpredictable, fragile. You vanished between one moment and the next, and I realized I'd wasted years loving you in silence when I could have been loving you openly." He shifted, getting down on one knee despite the impropriety of doing so without a formal arrangement. "So I'm not wasting any more time." From his robe, he pulled out a small box. Inside was a ring set with a blue gemstone that seemed to glow with inner light. "This is my family's heirloom, blue dragonstone passed from generation to generation. The Thornscale family has served the kingdom since Valerius first built it. My ancestors helped establish the Great Library, the archives that house our collective knowledge. My father gave me this ring before he died and told me to give it to someone worthy of our family name." He looked up at Selene, his deep blue eyes bright with unshed tears. "Selene Eirian Sunwing, you are the worthiest person I know. You're brave and intelligent and compassionate. You survived torture and dimensional barriers and 2 months alone in another world. You turned catastrophe into a catalyst for change. You brought back knowledge that's improving lives across all 9 kingdoms. You're everything I've ever admired in a person and everything I could ever want in a partner." His hands trembled slightly as he held up the ring. "Will you marry me? Will you let me stand beside you through whatever comes? Will you give me the honor of being your consort, your partner, your husband?" Selene couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only stare at this man, this wonderful, patient, brilliant man, offering her
everything she'd ever wanted but been too afraid to reach for. Yes, yes, 1,000 yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and the blue dragonstone flared with light, recognizing its new bearer. Then he stood, and they kissed. Desperate and gentle and full of 15 years of patient waiting, finally released. When they pulled apart, both were crying again. "We're getting married," Selene said wonderingly, looking at the ring on her finger. "We're getting married," Caspian confirmed, pulling her close. "And this time, no dark mages, no dimensional barriers, no catastrophes are gonna separate us. Promise?" "Promise," Caspian said firmly. "From now on, whatever comes, we face it together." They stayed in the Queen's Haven for hours, talking about everything. Their fears, their hopes, their plans for the future, making promises and dreaming out loud about the life they'd build together. And for the first time since her kidnapping, Selene felt completely, perfectly whole. She was home. She was safe. She was with the person she loved most. The rest would work itself out. That evening, Selene and Caspian presented themselves to her family to formally announce their engagement. Luna took one look at them, hands clasped, matching expressions of joy, and burst into tears. "Finally," she sobbed, "I've been waiting for this since you were children." Ryu pulled them both into a crushing embrace. "Welcome to the family, Caspian, officially this time." Her brothers whooped and cheered, tackling Caspian in an avalanche of congratulations and threats about treating their sister right. "You hurt her, we'll make you regret it," Solaris said cheerfully, while simultaneously hugging Caspian hard enough to crack ribs. "We won't hurt him," Valor corrected. "We'll just make him wish we had." "That's somehow worse," Caspian managed, laughing despite the oxygen deprivation. Valerius and Lilybell arrived, and Lilybell immediately claimed Selene for a private word. "Are you happy, Silver Star?" her grandmother asked, searching Selene's face. "Deliriously," Selene confirmed. "Grandmother, I love him. I think I always have. And now I get to spend my life with him." "Then that's all that matters," Lilybell said, kissing her forehead. "Love freely, darling girl. You've earned it." The celebration extended late into the night. Food was brought out, wine was shared, and stories were told. Selene's uncles arrived and added to the chaos, each offering their own version of relationship advice that ranged from helpful to completely absurd. "Never go to bed angry," Aiden suggested. "Always go to bed angry," Ember countered. "The makeup process is the best part." "Ignore both of them," Luna said, laughing. "Just be honest with each other. That's all that really matters." As the night wound down, Selene found herself standing on a balcony with Caspian, watching the stars. "This is real, right? Not a dream brought on by torture-induced trauma." "Definitely real," Caspian assured her, pulling her close. "And it's only going to get better from here." Selene leaned against him, content in a way she'd never been before. She'd survived the impossible, and in return, she'd received everything she'd ever wanted. A family who loved her, a kingdom that prospered under her brother's guidance, knowledge that would benefit millions, and Caspian, her best friend, her love, her future. It wasn't the story she'd expected, but it was perfectly, wonderfully hers. Chapter 7. The trial of 7 days resumed 3 weeks after Selene's return. The judges convened, the kingdoms gathered, and the 7 heirs, now 6 as one would be chosen, prepared to complete what they'd started. The second trial was wisdom, the head judge announced. Princess Selene demonstrated extraordinary wisdom in surviving her captivity and returning safely across dimensional barriers. Day 2 is awarded to Princess Selene Eirian Sunwing. Her brothers applauded, no resentment, just genuine pride. Days 3 through 6 passed in a blur of challenges. Compassion. Selene chose to heal former enemies rather than punish them. She spent hours in the prisons using her newly strengthened lunar magic to cure diseases and mend wounds, showing that compassion wasn't weakness. It was the strength of a different kind. Justice. When presented with a case where both parties were partially right and partially wrong, Selene found a solution that honored truth over simple punishment. She reconstructed what actually happened, revealed hidden motives, and created restitution that served healing rather than retribution. Courage, she faced her own trauma, returning to the location where the portal had first appeared and confronting her fear of dimensional magic. She spoke publicly about her torture, about her weakness, about her terror, because courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to be vulnerable despite it. Sacrifice. This was the hardest trial. Each heir was asked what they would give up for their kingdom. Her brothers offered wealth, status, and personal happiness. Selene offered truth. She spoke about the months of captivity, about the fear and pain, about choosing duty over the desire to hide her scars. She sacrificed her privacy, her carefully maintained image, because her people deserved a ruler who understood the true cost of service. By day 6, it was clear to everyone that Selene would win. But the final trial, unity, required all 7 siblings working together. By day 6, Selene had proven herself worthy through wisdom, compassion, justice, courage, and sacrifice. Her family was whole, her people were prospering, Caspian's ring gleamed on her finger, a promise of forever. Day 7 should have been the final test. Unity. 7 siblings working together to complete the trial. But instead, when day 7 dawned, the sky above the 9 kingdoms turned the color of old blood. Reality tore open, not a portal to the human world, something worse, something darker. The abyss had come, and it brought nightmares, disease, and a hell prince who wanted revenge. Selene would wear the crown of creation that day. She would save thousands of lives. But the cost would nearly kill her, and the corruption she absorbed would haunt her for years to come. If you came this far, thank you so much. I hope you liked Selene's journey. Subscribe to my channel for part 2, The Crown's Choice.